Conformity bias is simply the tendency to go along with the group. It is the tendency to be influenced by those around you. And there was a fascinating study done many decades ago. It's an old study that actually first identified and noticed this dynamic. It's called the Ash Conformity experiments, if you want to take a look at it. And what I want to do right now is I want to do the Ash Conformity experiment with you. What you see on the screen is you see a single vertical line on the left-hand side and then 3 vertical lines on the right-hand side labeled A, B, and C. Which of those lines on the right, A, B, or C, most closely corresponds to that single vertical line on the left? Raise your hand if you think it's A. Raise your hand if you think it's B. Raise your hand if you think it's C. It's C. No, it really is C. It's not an optical illusion. I'm not trying to trick you. It is actually C. Now, here's the interesting thing. When they conducted the Ash Conformity experiments, they did exactly what I just did with you. They asked their subjects to come in, take a look at those 2 figures, and they asked the question, which of those lines, A, B, or C, most closely corresponds to the vertical line on the left? And what they found is over 99% of the time, the person responded with the answer of C, which is the correct answer. But then they did something very interesting. They introduced confederates to this process, and how they worked it was as following. They basically took 7 confederates, 7 individuals who were quote-unquote in on it, and they still had the 8th person who wasn't in on it, the 8th person who was going to be the one that they studied, and they would pose the same question. And they would go to confederate number 1. They say, okay, which of those lines, A, B, or C, most closely matches the line on the left? And the confederate would say B. And then confederate 2 would say B. And confederate 3 would say B, all the way down to confederate 7 who would say B. And what they found in those cases is that 37% of the time, that person, the one who was not in on it, would actually respond B. Now, 63% of the time, they would still respond with the correct answer of C, but it went from basically less than 1% to 37% of the time with that person, when they were confederates who were saying the wrong answer before them, would simply follow with the wrong answer. Everybody follow that? Everybody see that? And the reason that I say that conformity bias is, to me, the most interesting one, and I think in some ways the most important one, or at least one of the most important forms of bias, is because it can have such a profound impact on our ability to make decisions and solve problems. Because one of the things that happens when we have this dynamic, when we have individuals that are influenced by others, when we have individuals who basically are going along with the group, is that we have the potential of losing intellectual power. We have the potential of losing intellectual capital. We may have individuals that have the ability to solve some of these significant problems and issues that we have and to make more effective decisions, but if all they're doing is going along with the group and all they're doing is listening to what others say and following in those footsteps, then that greatly reduces the likelihood of that happening.